Well, welcome everyone. My name is Robin Flynn, and this is my beloved partner,
Darcy.
Darcy. There we go. Darcy the Starseed. And together we are Visionary Hearts. And we have asked our dear friends and beloved elders, Karuna and Paul, to join us for this conversation. And, really this call series, this Soul Power Medicine call series is really for Darcy and the feeling of this alive movement that is happening on the planet and that we are all deeply contributing to and participating in, which is a silent but invincible revolution of love, an awakening of heart that's happening through spontaneous illumination, through beautiful sacred circles, through so many of us really in a deeper knowing that not only is a more beautiful world possible, but that we can only grow that more beautiful world through a culture of awakened hearts. And so this series of live calls is really in service to how do we practically do this? How do we practically tend our heart fields and grow this deeper culture of awakened heart and love? And one of the deepest points of pain and deepest longings in our lives is our relationships and how to be met, to love deeply, and to be loved. And truly this calling, this longing is the inherent and fundamental drive of our lives as humans. And yet, so many of us, and I know so many people in this circle and who signed up and the reflections. In fact, we had for this call a wonderful smattering of people from all over the globe because we're doing this as a live call. We have people from the west coast of BC and California. We also have people who signed up for this from Europe, from Australia, from Asia, from South Africa, and from Iceland. So whoever's from Iceland, if you would like the four of us to come, we would be happy to come. So I'm just saying, like, if you'd like us to come, we could come. I'm just letting you know that. But thank you for coming. And in who responded, which I feel is like a really beautiful representation of the larger field of our community and our overlapping communities, is that we had about 30% of people in deeply committed partnerships and tending the flames. We had about 30 in kind of tumultuous, high growth zones. Wouldn't say it's easy, but are, working the partnership field. And we had 30% of people who are not in partnership and who are potentially open, and others who are not open. And we realized, for this whole thing, and I mean, that's fair, right? That we in our conversations in preparing for our Heart of Relationship retreat, which we offered last year and we're going to be offering again in September, it's like, you know, how do we do this devotion, life, relationship thing? For years, Darcy and I have stayed away from couples work. Just saying that. We deeply love and respect anybody who has the courage to work with couples in their healing journey. And we have not yet been that courageous. In fact, we just work with individuals that sometimes live together. But we do that. And so when we had different community members coming to us, we're like, we have our relationship and we're just coming on to, like, we have our 20th anniversary this month. And yeah, we really would rather than kind of figure out what we're offering. Is like, well, we know this couple who are amazing, who are maybe some of the coolest people you'll ever meet, and they've been together for 60 years. Like, those are some people that we would like to learn from because that's 3 times longer than we've been in relationship. And so this whole larger conversation, we came together and really began to dive into this topic. And I'm just setting the stage a bit because I feel like a bit of context is important. Uh, Also, we have known Karuna and Paul for, I think, the better part of 15 years. We have a deep friendship. Karuna was at the birth of our daughter. She was our doula. We've been in so many different ceremonial, yogic, ritual spaces. I consider these two some of our deep soul family and mentors. Their teachings have gone deep into my life and been a psychoactive force of good. And really what they have to share is, to me, something that we have such a rare opportunity in this world, which is to actually sit with elders who've been through such a huge arc of life, but who aren't just, 60 years of marriage, but have been for that same amount of time, or if just a little bit shorter, because I do believe you met in high school. I don't know if you were yogi practitioners in high school. That's very advanced for the early 60s. I'm super impressed, already impressed. But as we were having this conversation, it's like, how long have you been practicing yoga? Well, for about the 60 years, and meditation and the different Buddhist teachings. Like, so we have these two lives of deep spiritual practice and devoted relationship, and what can be born of that. So I just wanted to create a little context. Darcy's going to guide us through a bit of an alignment process, and then we'll dive into our bigger conversation.
Mhm.
Great.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for coming this evening. You just close your eyes for a moment and just connect. Just starting to feel your breath in your body, in your lungs, in your belly. Feeling your breath become more gentle, a little slower. Feeling your nervous system start to relax. Feeling that breath move into your heart space, really lighting up your heart. Feeling the earth underneath us, this beautiful earth mother, really holding each of us. Feeling the cosmos above us, the sun and the moon, all the stars. Feeling the beauty of nature all around us. Such a beautiful time of the year. And then just feeling any anxiety or worry, any nervousness, just release on your out breath. Breathing in life force and beauty, and just breathing out anything old, stuck, heavy. Let's just do one more big breath. Very good. Welcome back.
Stay.
Mhm.
So we're here with a deeper question in a spirit of curiosity, of exploration, of deep listening to, of course, like the conversation we're going to have here, but of course, everything we say is, an invitation into your hearts. And to recognize that, this larger conversation is really here to be in service to the wisdom and the beauty that lives within you. And irregardless of all of our different life experiences, it's just so important to remember to bring everything that we share to the altar of your heart and just really contemplate it and see what has merit for you. And to open up this conversation, we were sharing yesterday in preparing for this call with Karuna and Paul a little bit of their early time together, and recognizing that not only have they been in this committed partnership relationship for over 60 years, that they both got their masters in counseling in the early 70s from Stanford, from Berkeley, and were there at the heart of the Vietnam uh and hippie revolution. I mean, were you guys at Haight Street at 1969? Were you there for that? They were. That is so cool. Dang. All the stories, we could get sidetracked. But but also that, at a certain point you made this choice to leave the Bay Area and come north and leave it all behind in looking for a deeper truth of reality, a deeper understanding of the nature of being. And what you were sharing yesterday is that you came and you stayed in a cabin in the middle of northern BC with minus 40 below outside, and just were in this winter of quietude and deep reset from the status quo, from the matrix, from that larger consensual reality. And then from that, your life to Canada and BC kind of emerged. And so I wanted to also presence that. It's like there's very few times we get to sit with elders who have been together for 60 years, who have been in the counseling field for at least 50 years, and then also who've been in deep spiritual practice for that whole time. So there's a level of wisdom and reflection that's just pretty rare. And so I just wanted to presence that. And from that, to turn this over to you, Karuna and Paul, with the question, what for you, for each of you, what is devotion and the art of sacred relationship? What is that truly?
Glenn, you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a huge question, of course, and it's a wonderful question. And first, I just want to thank Darcy and Robin for their endless love and inspiration and the energy that manifests into something like this. And we just love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for holding the vision and manifesting it in the amazing ways you do. Okay, so I would like to talk a little bit about devotion because it feels at the essence of relationship and spiritual practice to me. I like to define and understand devotion as love over time, like taking love and bringing it dimensionally across time, almost like into another plane, so that it's not just love at this present moment, but it's a love that can be sustained and is actually at the foundation of all that is. In fact, what we are is loving presence. And so devotion to me is returning again and again to that place of oneness, which all the great wisdom traditions and all the spiritual practices lead us back to, that feeling of union, of non-duality, of the loving awareness that we are, which to me is the essence of relationship, whether it's our relationship with ourselves, with our beloved, with our parents, with our children, with our friends, with our community, with our hearts, with spirit, with nature, and being willing over time to return again and again to the practices that take us back to that foundation of loving presence. So it's making those choices day after day, um, to show up and remember what we truly are. So that's a short answer. Would you like to answer?
Thanks, Darcy and Robin. Uh, we appreciate you so much, and thank you everybody for coming and listening. We're all wanting something. We're all wanting some perhaps secret way to heal contentious relationships, or somehow enhance our relationships. And one of the things we're going to be talking about and also working with in the retreat is an orientation towards how are we going to do this? How are we going to find a method, a path, a way of deconstructing perhaps the old ways of working, trying to work with relationship, which is often trying to change our partners so that we feel better, uh, and work more from a place of the recognition of our already open heart, and working with connecting with our already open heart, uncovering our already open heart ourselves. So starting with ourselves, working with what is it that's covering over this heart that's already awake, that we don't have to shake and say wake up, because we're already there. What we find as we work with this is that there are layers and coverings that we can begin to shed and open up, and we can do that in different ways. There's the psychological approach to that. There's a psycho-spiritual approach to it. There are lots of different modalities and ways of waking up, um, waking up to the already awake heart. So that's what is of interest to me, working with myself first, because if I'm struggling with not feeling seen, not feeling heard, not feeling loved myself, my tendency is to project that onto Karuna and want something from her. So the wanting something from her is a trap. And what we're looking at is this question: what do we want from our partner that we're not getting? And then finding that, well, what is it that I want? I want more. I want more love. I want more affirmation. I want more a feeling that I'm okay. All of these different things that in some ways digs the hole deeper for me when I'm looking at it in that way. So then the second way of working with it is, what is it that I'm wanting and trying to get from my partner that I'm refusing to give to myself. And starting there, working with finding that, bringing that into awareness, and doing whatever my healing work is around that. So uncover, and that's the process of uncovering, process of finding the already open heart, and and in the moments when we can find the already open heart, reaction starts falling away, uh, conflict starts falling away, because we're looking through new eyes. We're looking through the eyes of the heart now, instead of the eyes of the ego self that wants that is wanting something from our partners. So that's the general idea here for me, and it feels good to recognize that the heart is already open, and that we can actually work with the already open heart to a point where we can when things arise, because things are always going to arise. I mean, for me, um, different different negative emotions arise. I notice the emotion. Sometimes I'm caught in the emotion. It actually comes out into the room and slimes the room in one way or another. Uh, so working with that in myself, and what's the foundation? What's the grounding that allows me to see that, to be conscious of these reactions as they arise without getting caught in them, and then gradually healing that in myself so I can come to Karuna or anybody else and without that kind of prickly sense of wanting something or feeling offended or feeling hurt or whatever it is. So that's where I'm coming from in this conversation and in this retreat, and I'd it's this is good work and important work to do. So here we are.
Thanks. And so you're like, I mean, this is kind of a little bit of a given, but just to be a tiny bit cheeky, like, so this is working out for you too. Like you're watching your inner world, and when you want something from Karuna, you're first checking that in yourself and seeing how you can tend that. And like that's how like, is that something that you've done for many years? Or like you've been together for 60 years? When did you cultivate this inner listening skill? Was it at 20 years? Was it at 5 years? Was it last year? I'm curious about this.
I think it's evolving every day. I it's I mean, for my speaking for myself, it's definitely a work in progress. Often I'll find myself wanting something from Paul, and something that really, when I go a little bit deeper, I realized, oh, this is something I could care for myself with. But first, I'll maybe turn towards him and as if he could fix things for me. And then when I sit with it, especially if he is at all resistant to what I want, and I look a little deeper, I realize, all that what I'm looking for is also is what I want from Paul is what I can give to myself, really. And I mean, it's not that Paul doesn't give me, amazing support and, wonderful care and compassion and kindness but if I'm looking to him to fill me it'll never work. So you asked when. I think at the beginning, especially, I mean, we started going out when we were teenagers. So, then it was definitely at the very beginning. I didn't have a clue about any of this that we're talking about. But I would say it evolves with practice that, like Rumi said, our task is not to seek for love, but to remove the obstacles that we have for just being love. Like the more I could feel it from my own spiritual practices like yoga and meditation or being out in nature, um, that loving presence is my essence and that's a place where I can rest. I don't have to try to manipulate Paul to give me that reassurance. And so gradually that realization would come sooner and sooner. And Paul and I, um, this is called the Dharma lag, like you know, the time when you realize what you're looking for out there is something that's actually been right here. Like, and all the Sufi poets say that, you're looking for the beloved while um, it's right here. Well, all that you're looking for is really inside first. And once you find that, then from that place, relationship flourishes. So that's a partial answer.
You get the idea that, Robin, you asked, when did we discover these things? And it has been an ongoing process. But one of the things that's helped me over the years is my spiritual practice of Buddhism and the teachings of the Buddha. But I find too that this isn't exclusive to Buddhism. The Buddha spoke about how things are, not some kind of belief system and structure. So he spoke of forgiveness. He spoke of loving kindness and compassion, um, and joy. And so for me, that orientation is very helpful to practice. What am I practicing? I'm practicing again, connecting with my heart and connecting with present moment awareness. And this combination isn't it doesn't belong to Buddhism. It belongs to us as humans. And the more we can find that, the more we can truly heal these afflictions that we've been carrying, the not good enough. I was thinking today, for many years I carried what my dad said to me, "You're a bad boy." I carried it for a long time, and then one day I realized it, and I woke up to that, and bringing that awareness to it was the first step in healing. So this isn't about any particular program, but it's about an authentic practice that actually heals. And uh, my teacher would say, it's not for the faint of heart. It's a strong practice to turn towards yourself, to feel into these places that are stuck and hidden and in the darkness, and work with them. And this is in Christianity, they talk about the dark night of the soul, and they talk about the valley of the shadow of death. And these things are very difficult to turn toward and work with. It takes great courage to really accept uh, the places that we're stuck, the places where we're not in alignment with our hearts, and work with these things.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's a good question. And for me, I've been working with meditation practice for over 30 years, and had some amazing experiences, both really opening experiences, and also very difficult and painful experiences through that time. Both are good.
Thank you. Yeah. So what I'm hearing from both of you, and then I have a question for this guy over here too. I'm kind of in the questioner role. I usually just have a lot to say personally, but I'm going to also try to question. But what I'm hearing from you two is really what you're pointing to, what you're saying is that, to be in that beloved partnership and that joyful relationship. What I'm hearing both of you say is like this place of like real radical self-responsibility and spiritual maturity to keep working your own practice, so then you're not expecting one another to fill those holes, those wounds, those old places within, because ultimately you can't actually manipulate another person to make you feel the way that you want to feel, no matter how much they love you. Does that feel like kind of like a good synopsis of what you both have been saying?
Yeah, that's part of it for sure.
Yeah, part of it. Okay. And then I wanted to ask this guy over here, like, what's your feeling of devotion and the art of sacred relationship? And preface this other question, which is a question we had the opportunity right after our marriage, which was, we met 20 years ago. We got married 14-ish years ago, kind of forgetting a little bit now. And then for our honeymoon, we went back to Burning Man, which is where we first met. And we had the opportunity to do this couples session with Rick Doblin in this very ceremonial, sacred setting. Rick Doblin is the founder of the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. And we did the session. And the question we went into this session with him is a question that has been guiding our lives and relationships since. And I'm kind of curious what you'll say. And the question is, how do you keep a good thing going? Because we get together, we fall in love, and it's so amazing. And it's the eros, as it's called now. Everybody's talking about eros. It's like the eros is full bloom. It's wonderful. And then all of a sudden that stops. And then it starts to become devotion versus eros and loveness. But how do we keep a good thing going? So I'm going to shift that over to you.
Good question.
Yeah. And then see what everybody has to say.
Well, it has been 20 years we've been together. I still feel like I'm in my infancy with with this though. Time goes really fast, and but 20 years, it's a good amount of time. For me, the devotion word concept is primal, right? As well as commitment. I really feel what really helped us to continue on in a good way is we've both been committed to this partnership, right? And hopefully 100%. And there's, of course, all relationships are unique and different dynamics. But we really both just decided to lean into the relationship right from the start. We knew a good thing when we saw it, and then we decided to make sure that we did our own work, right? We made sure that it was actually in our vows. We vowed that we would.
Yeah, except for I don't do vows in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So it was a commitment.
Yeah.
I don't do vows. It's part of my my recontracting of my soul. Sorry.
Totally. We made commitments that we'd each individually do our own work, and we wouldn't put that onto the other person. And so that was important, right? It's like, okay, if we're going to make this work, let's make sure that we each individually do as much work on our stuff, especially on those triggers that come up in every relationship that really can be detrimental, right? Those triggers that come up, and that willingness to either stick your heels in, and you got to be right and they're wrong and you're not moving, and that willingness to say, hey, let's just take a pause here. Let's just, stop and see what's happening here. Maybe we'll listen to each other, see your side of the story, try to understand where the other person's coming from. We've been relatively good at that. We've been really respectful of hearing the other person. And that definitely took some time over the 20 years to get better at. There's in my earlier days, I was a little bit more pig-headed with things, but over time I realized, you know what, if I just stopped and just like listen for a little bit, things usually turned out better. Right. And so I think, and then over time, I kind of got tired of my own stuff, right? Those same patterns that I get myself into that trigger me. And so over time, I started to notice those patterns that come up and that would trigger me. And I'm like, I'm just kind of a little bit tired of kind of repeating the same thing with Robin. And so over time, I definitely committed myself into looking more into my stuff, what was surfacing. Um, and a lot of times those hidden blind spots, right? Those hidden shadow aspects, they're really looking to be seen. And when you do see them, if you just take a moment and say, hey, I'm going to take a look at this. I'm not going to keep reflecting it and projecting it out into my partnership. If I just stop and take a look, a lot of times that's what they need to start to unravel, right? And so over time, I use that as some of my spiritual practice too. Is like, okay, whenever a trigger comes up, when when you're in that trigger state, right? You can feel it. It's like this vibration. There's righteousness, and it's like needing to be right, and it's there. It can be a strong energy. So whenever that energy would come up, I would notice it, and then use that to sort of track into my shadow. Right. So you're not using the relationship to grow spiritually, but definitely seeing those trigger points to be able to notice those hidden aspects, those hidden wounds
Mhm.
that come up in relationship. Sometimes those hidden shadows match perfectly in relationship too. Right. It's almost like a divine match of heavy shadow that comes in. And if
Huh.
you're not careful, those shadows can really damage a relationship. You're breaking up because your shadows are activated and not necessarily because you're not supposed to be together. And so um I decided that, I'm going to work on my stuff. I'm going to be committed to this relationship, and I'm going to be 100% in. I want to make sure that this I've done my part for this relationship to thrive, right? And I'm not going to self-sabotage it by my immaturity, my shadow, those old woundings. So doing my best, like there's no perfect way of this, but the intention is to grow together in a really healthy, beautiful way together.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just speak a little bit and then turn this back over you to Karuna and Paul, because I feel like there's this part where not everybody is in committed relationships, and to me, you know, the absolute key is kind of like crystallizing it down. I felt like there's like three essential pieces to the art of sacred relationship, and I feel this is true within myself. I feel this is true with Darcy, but I also feel like it's true in all of my relationships. And also, we're, primarily ceremonial shamanic practitioners. And really, the art of shamanism is the art of sacred relationship. Like shamanism, animism on this level is building relationships with all these different levels of reality, these spiritual beings, which are become a very alive part of your story, right? And whether they're ultimately true or not, they're a beautiful story. So I'm keeping them. But the three things that I've seen is that I have to be in a practice of authentic self-love. And when I'm in a place of authentic self-love, then I am not looking for him to make me feel better about myself or fill any part of me up, as the two of you were sharing. And also, I'm not looking for that outside in other places, other relationships, but also I don't put up with something that's not loving either. Because when I've been in a place of not authentically loving myself, I've stayed in relationships where there was unkindness, where there was a lack of consciousness, where it was too harsh for my heart. And I stayed there to be loved because I was looking for a place to get filled in me because I wasn't tending that myself. And so for me, this authentic self-love and then meeting those places in me, and like as soon as I look for him to meet those, it never works. It never works. But as soon as I'm in authentic self-love, then it's like he's basking me in love. It's like the backwards law that Alan Watts talk about. You know, the more you look for something, the more you seek something, the farther away it gets. You know, and like that is just so manifest for me on the relational level. So authentic self-love, radical self-honesty, which comes in that, is like, do I really need him to do this? Or do I actually just want him to do what I want him to do to make me feel a little bit better? And actually, if I'm honest with myself, often I just want him to do what I want him to do because I like people to do what I want them to do when I want them to do it, just the way I want them to do it. And if they don't do it that way, I get angry. Right? Like so much of relationship is just that. You're not doing exactly what I want you to do in just the way I want you to do it. And so I'm going to be upset with you. I'm going to make you pay for that. And then everything falls apart. But if I'm in radical self-honesty, I can be like, this isn't love. This is manipulation. This isn't love. This is me trying to get this part of me validated that no matter how many times somebody has told me I'm beautiful, I still don't believe it. You know, and that part of me then that looks for that from him, then when he says it, I don't believe him because I asked him to say it. Has anybody else ever been in that place? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's crazy making. And the solution is radical self-honesty. Like, oh, look at that. Like, okay. And then the third thing is absolute devotion to conscious growth. And like, I think if we do those three things, no matter if we're with somebody and they're wonderful, or we're with somebody and they drive us crazy, which probably happens about, many times in every day, no matter our relationship, he doesn't put things back in the same place ever in the kitchen.
It's pretty cute.
He doesn't do that. It's never like we have this orange spatula. It's never in the same place. My mom knows about it. It's a thing.
It has many homes.
We've been in the same house for 5 years. So I thought, oh, maybe it's like a thing that if you live in the same house long enough and you put the things back in the same place. No. But if I'm in authentic self-love and I'm in radical self-honesty, should he put things back in the same place? Like, no, I don't know. But it's not a big deal. And I do other things that drive him a little bit crazy. But in this, then I'm able to meet that because I'm doing this inner work of freedom, of liberation. And if I'm authentically in self-love, I'm being honest with myself and not deluding myself that my happiness or my joy or my even feeling love could actually ever come from an outside source. Because people have loved me, but I've not been open to it and I haven't been able to feel it at all. And people haven't loved me and I've been in this amazing rapture of love. And then I've been confused when they're like, actually, I'm not into you at all. But I'm like, well, I'm just like having the best time over here. It's not actually an outside thing. So I just wanted to share those 3 pieces because I sat a lot with this, and I think that I can say that those are truthful and honest for me and a work in progress. And so, as we're kind of already somehow getting close to our 10, maybe like 10 or so more minutes of this call, I don't know how that happened. I want to close with kind of this question, if there is one thing that, each of us could impart or you could impart around devotion and the art of sacred relationship that you feel is missing from the larger conversation in therapy, because both of you have been long-term therapists, and Paul, you've been in active practice. You just closed your practice after like 3 decades or more. So the missing piece that you've seen in therapy or in spiritual world and these different things around the art of relationship that you wish somebody would have told you, or maybe your future self would come back and you could tell your younger self. Now, this is a spontaneous question. I did not front load them for this. I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm happy to talk about that. It's coming up as you were talking, and generally we have this idea of who we are, and who we are is constructed from our conditioning, from all of the feedback that we've gotten, and how we think about ourselves, and that edifice of self is built up over our lifetime, and that's fine. It's an operating system. It's a way of moving through the world. It's a way of relating to each other. But there's a trap in it too. This trap of identifying with that edifice of self. So, in many spiritual traditions, they ask the question, "Who am I?" And if we can begin to ask that question of ourselves, and even get a taste for a moment of something beyond who I think I am, there's a true sense of liberation in that moment, where awareness arises, uh, open spaciousness arises, and we can see clearly the other, not on the basis of what they're doing in the moment. Maybe they're asking us to put the spoon back where it belongs, or maybe they're whatever it is that they're doing. But we can find that place of humanness and unity in them. We can see it clearly because we're looking through the eyes of wisdom and the eyes of the heart. And so it's a different approach in a way. In one way, we can, if we heal all the wounds of our lifetime, we'll likely end up in the same place. But there's also this other way, this way of practicing being fully present right now, and letting go of the self-definitions and what we want, and what we can give to ourselves and all of that stuff, and just being here fully and feeling the connection, not only with our own hearts, but with our partner's hearts, and walking down the street and seeing somebody walking down the street. I think I mentioned this story the other day when we were talking, Robin and Darcy, about when we were in Bali, uh, and we were walking to the curry shop for dinner down this road, and the road was fairly narrow, and there were people walking toward us, Balinese people and other people, and we were walking down, and Karuna was ahead of me, and just walking along, and I started to notice that the people that were walking toward me were smiling, and they had this kind of bright light quality to them, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, because normally you know that's an interesting phenomenon that doesn't normally occur, but the people were smiling, and I finally figured out when I looked at Karuna, and just from the back, and I saw that Karuna was smiling at the people, and that smile, that loving open-heartedness was contagious, and it was coming back to me. I was receiving it in a smile and smiling back, and that's the way we create healing, not only in a relationship, not only with ourselves, but planetary healing, when we can really meet
Mm.
each other and the world with loving awareness. It's a it's an essential tool for healing relationship with everything.
And it's also the answer, I think, to your question, Robin, earlier of how do you keep a good thing going? And it's also the answer to how can you heal something that's going downhill? So in any kind of relationship, and all of us are in relationship all the time with ourselves or with anybody we see at the co-op, or, we're always in relationship with the world around us. So how are you going to meet the world around us? How do you keep relationship alive? Well, how do you keep a fire alive? How do you asked, how do you turn it back to arrows? Well, you have to feed a fire, right? If you don't feed the fire goes out. It's just how it is. You don't nourish the fire slows down. It needs air, it needs fuel, it needs care, it needs tending, it needs love, just like we all do and any relationship does. So what I think has really kept our relationship alive is basically every day we check in with what's happening right now. What are we focusing on? We have a little meeting at the beginning of the day. What do we want to focus on? And we could try to keep it simple. Maybe it's kindness.
The work.
What's the word? Yeah, we choose a word for the day, just to as our practice, and that will take us back into our heart. Could be kindness, could be compassion, could be balance, could be listening, could be presence. And we just keep practicing that all day, and it's joyful. It's not painful. It keeps us in our hearts. So, and you said, what do I wish my younger self had known? Well, my grandmother always told me that. She tried to keep telling me that. Karuna, it's all about love. Just it's about love, and it's about being present and being authentic. And there was a long time where I felt, oh no, it's got to be way more complicated than that. There's all these theories and all these relationship issues that are psychological, and we've all been conditioned. But as Paul was saying too, it can be that simple. You can do all that, and that's all very interesting, and work on all that, or you can surrender to love and be what you are, which is loving presence, and read the mystical poets and take that into your heart and live that, and just that's a very joyful existence. Like, I remember that day when I was smiling at everybody, I was just feeling that joy of being alive in such a beautiful world. So, and by the way, Robin, don't we have a little bit of time for questions? I
We sure do.
thought
Yeah, we do. That was just for us kind of in this phase of the call. But yeah. And how about you? Anything that you'd like to share to close? What's your secret, Darcy? You seem to have so much figured out. I mean, like, I
Well,
was with this guy and he's like, he's a mystery wrapped in an enigma.
I was just thinking when you guys were speaking that uh, one thing that I take to heart, and it's part of positive psychology, is all relationships, but especially romantic relationships, is there's a balance between positive, positive rapport and gratitude to your partner. That's what's the term?
Ratio.
A ratio between positive and negative that really needs to happen in a relationship, right? And they say 5 to 1,
I've to
right? Which I think that's pretty low, right? I think it should be much bigger than that. But there's something that really works, and it's quite simple. Is if you have a criticism, if you have something to say and something to work on, something to mention, you got to balance it out with at least 5 positive affirmations for that person. Or else it becomes too unbalanced. The relationship becomes in a negative heavy weight to it if you're just criticizing all the time, right? Like Karuna says, you're stoking that fire. Well, you're stoking that fire with kind of heavy criticisms all the time and negativity. It's a kind of a harsh fire. But if most of your interactions are positive and beautiful and uplifting, heart connecting, then you can still have hard conversations, right? You can still kind of like meet in some deeper content, but the love is going to hold you, right? Your connection, the fire that you've created is going to hold you in those hard moments. And I think, in a way that's like, if that feels true to me, and it feels quite simple, right? But it's a choice that we all have to make, right? I need to choose every day to really flower my relationships with love and gratitude and appreciation. I have to intend that. So the harder moments, we have the capacity, right? We have the energy to be able to overcome what is needed.
There's one other thing I'd like to say about this, and that's, we're talking about loving relationships and working with the people that we're in relationship with. And there are times we don't want to be too naive about this. It reminds me of a story that Stephen Levine says when he was asked the question, what do you do when you've invited somebody into your home and you walk into a room and you find them stealing your silverware? And the answer that Stephen Levine gave was, you keep your heart open and you show them to the door. It's an important story because what I found is important to work with, and what is part of the Buddhist teaching and the loving kindness teachings is you do the work for yourself first. So you work with loving kindness and compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity for yourself first. You do the forgiveness practice for yourself first, and then you're more of an open vessel to receive the world from that place of loving oneself with kindness and with friendliness and with openness, without judgment. If I'm judging myself, it's almost impossible for me to love another. So it's important to recognize that side of the story as well. Not just working with the positive and the day to day, but also recognizing that there's a time for us to take care of ourselves, and sometimes it's best to just let go.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Paul, for speaking to that. And I think, this is this piece of, how do we grow in consciousness so that our spiritual lives, our relationships, that, all this greater field of being we're actually creating an environment where it's possible to thrive. And I think that what you're speaking to is just that there's certain energies that are fundamentally counter to thriving. And that with love comes wisdom. And without wisdom, and as you two have spoken about in so many conversations we've had, discriminative wisdom, the ability to see clearly, to hear clearly, to feel clearly if this person is actually capable of meeting us in a place of their authentic self-love. So, and that's just actually something that I think that I can only feel if I'm in my authentic place of care. And also then that we just don't put up with a lot of bad attitude and bad behavior when we're in a place of loving kindness, compassion, and authentic self-love. It's easy to step out the door. It's easy to choose this with loving kindness and say no to this when I'm actually in that place. But if I'm not, that I can confuse myself endlessly by trying to figure out or psychologize what's making this person act that way. Maybe I could be better. Maybe I could do something different. Maybe if I just talked a little bit different, or I just did all these things, all these strategies to try to make this thing happen. But if I'm in authentic self-love, everything becomes really bifurcated. Like it becomes very simple. And I think that that's something that, that radical self-honesty, that radical honesty that I'm hearing you point back to. So thank you for that. And, we're going to have some time for some questions. And, what I'd really love to just close before we dive into personal questions is recognizing that, as maybe you're all, like everybody who's in the live call and everybody who's listening in, it's like tuning into that. Fundamentally, what we're all speaking to in this, and of course is impossible to address in its fullness in an hour call, but what we're all speaking to is that that devotion is practice. That it's a choice to keep practicing not just loving kindness, but compassion and self-awareness and forgiveness. And practicing that first in our own lives and then with everybody in our lives. And that I think is what, also in our Heart of Relationship retreat, it's for people in partnership and people who are not in partnership. It's for people who are in partnership, but they're just coming on their own and their partner's not coming. It's for everybody. Because what we need is Sangha. We need sacred community. We need Ayu, as they say in the Andes, to be able to work at this level of embodied mastery where our whole lives are about love. And the place that we often leave that out the most is at home. Right? Yeah, it's a ground zero. So we're going to be bringing all of these different teachings into embodied practice in our retreat that's coming up. So just to plant that seed and to say thank you all so much for your presence, for your willingness to dive into this mystery. I hope there was something of great merit in this time that we've had together.